All right, so welcome back. This is Sibling Rx. I'm Dr. Yas.
Dr. Radi, welcome back.
And today we're going to be talking about inflammation. So the good and the bad, right? So there's two types of inflammation. There's acute inflammation and there is chronic inflammation, right? Mm-hmm. So why don't you tell us about acute inflammation?
Yep, acute inflammation obviously is something that is new. I think the easiest kind of segue to describe it is, let's say you sprain your ankle, for example, you throw your back out or whatever. But a sprained ankle, your body alerts, your body's super smart, right? So it knows to send helpers. So I just kind of look at it as these little helper soldiers come down to the ankle and they start to kind of heal, right? But in the healing process, it starts to swell up. Unfortunately, people do everything in their power to disrupt the swelling process, which good and bad, right? There's some swelling that needs to happen, and then if you eliminate the other swelling, then you're impacting healing, right? You're decreasing the way it heals. So acute inflammation is your body's way of just trying to control what just happened. And there's things that you should do that, can help during that acute phase.
Yeah, so it's more short-term and protective, right? Yep. That's
a key word, protective.
Yeah. You want to make sure you're not inhibiting it too much because you want your body to inflame that particular area to heal it. So you don't want to mitigate the swelling too much, but you want to be comfortable too, right? So you want to lower it. So that's the easy type of inflammation, right? So let's talk about the more complex inflammation, which is chronic inflammation.
Yep.
So chronic inflammation is more low grade and damaging to your overall health. So a lot of times chronic inflammation won't even have an immediate trigger or an immediate infection or a sprain or anything like that. It's something that gradually increases.
It's kind of silent.
It's silent, yeah. So there's certain things that can increase your chronic inflammation, whether it's diet or environment, or even just environment, meaning the toxins around you, whether it's in your home or in the air. And then there's things that are more what we used to see all the time in practice, which is chronic stress from repetitive stress, repetitive things we do during the day, like the way we sit at our computer, ergonomics and things like that, right?
Yeah, sometimes those repetitive stress disorders, carpal tunnel or tennis elbow or back pain can start acute, and you go through the acute phase and subacute phase, and if you don't properly treat it, now you've let it become chronic, Right. But I think the category of inflammation that is the root of all evil, the root of all disease, because all chronic fatal diseases are a form of inflammation. And like you said, light doesn't go off when, unfortunately cancer cells have proliferated and spread. It's just one of those things that's happening, and chronic inflammation is just the root of all of that stuff. And how do we know what to do? How do we know if we're doing enough? How do we know if we're not doing enough is always the trick, right?
So when we talk about chronic inflammation, the more detrimental type of inflammation that causes diabetes, heart disease, cancers, different all-cause mortality type of diseases, that's the chronic inflammation. That's the low grade that usually is very silent, undetectable, not really tested for very often unless you go to a functional health practitioner. So that's the type of inflammation that I really want to hone in on today. That gets me fired up because those are the things we can control, right? We can control what we put on our body. We can control what we have in our environment. We can control these things to lessen the inflammation, right? So there's three major things we want to avoid in our diet and our environment that really help increase and actually are major factors of increasing inflammation, right? Chronic inflammation. So the first one is having the hidden sugars in our diet, right? So hidden sugars are things that aren't necessarily like a candy bar, right? It's the sugar that is in an ingredient an ingredient that we don't even recognize, or
because it's not even called sugar.
Right. It's called, you'll see it as something like high fructose corn syrup, and you think, oh, I'm just eating corn, right?
Yeah.
Well, we all know that's syrup, and it's concentrated sugar, right? So it's an unnecessary amount of sugar. So we want to make sure that we're eating things that don't have hidden sugars. And I always tell people, if you eat things that come in the original form, so if it's a piece of fruit, or if it's some sort of plant, or something that's grown in the original form, it's better to have that than to have the orange juice, right? It's better to have the orange than the orange juice, because the orange juice for sure is going to have some hidden sugars, especially.
They got to make it taste good, and they got to make it
profitable.
Profitable to sit on the shelf. But I think sugar from fruit is definitely better than having a bowl of ice cream or something like that.
Right.
But sugar. Let's just make sure people understand. If inflammation is a fire, for example, sugar is gasoline for that fire, right? So if you're inflamed and you are over consuming sugar, right? Because again, I think that it's always to understand the concept of it, but also to put it in real life perspective, because you are going to naturally ingest some sugar in your life.
You have to,
You know what I mean? It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And but if you can control your intake of it, and if you have a chronic inflammatory condition happening, then you're going to kind of lessen that fire, right?
It's interesting. I think about that, and I think about when our mom was going through chemotherapy and we took her to that holistic center in California. One of the first things that they wanted to do with her was to put her on instead of chemotherapy, they wanted to put her on insulin therapy as a drip, because, and I was learning about all the holistic ways of treating cancer. And the first thing that they said was, well, tumors thrive off of sugar. The more sugar you have in your body, the more the tumor will grow and the more aggressive it'll get. So they put people on insulin drips to
drop their sugar levels.
So it's really interesting. So hidden sugars is a huge cause of inflammation, and as we all know, cancer is caused by inflammation. So the other thing was the environmental toxins that are in our food, right? So we've got pesticides and herbicides and different things that are sprayed, preservatives, chemicals that are sprayed on our foods, chemicals that are put into our foods that are all known to be chronic inflammatory causers, right?
Right. So, and those are all there to, like we said a few minutes ago, to just increase the shelf life of a product, right? There's no other reason that they're there than to increase how long that stuff can stay on the shelf and how long until they sell it,
Right.
So.
And like I always tell my kids, if you look at something and you turn it around, you look at the box and you read the ingredients, if it's got stuff on there you can't pronounce or you can't find in the grocery store, it's probably not good for you, right? So you want to have stuff that doesn't have a laundry list full of ingredients, right? You want to, and the more foods, boxed and packaged foods you have that have lower amount of ingredients, the better it's going to be for your overall health, right?
What about foods that are anti-inflammatory? Because there's a lot of things that help decrease inflammation, and not supplements, but they're supplements, but like herbs and foods in general. Obviously, the first spice that comes to mind is turmeric, right? Turmeric is a huge thing. We've obviously been ingesting as Persians, we ingest turmeric probably before we ingest a bottle of milk when we were a little kid. But turmeric is in a lot of cuisines, right? And a lot of people don't know that curcumin and turmeric are such good anti-inflammatories, So that really is a great way to get some anti-inflammatory nutrients into your body,
Yeah, and there's other things you can... a fruit, like you would have to eat a lot of it, but pineapple has bromelain, right? Bromelain is a really good and natural anti-inflammatory. Bell peppers have capsaicin, which is another really good anti-inflammatory. But again, you would have to eat a lot of those foods to get the amount that you need for them. And that's why it's nice to be able to go get the herb in a capsule form. It's more concentrated. Yeah. But one thing that is just rampant in the U.S. that is banned in Europe is the bad fats, right? The unhealthy fats.
Right.
And what I mean by the bad fats is the trans fats, the fats that are the cooking oils that we use here in the United States, like the canola oil, the soybean oil, the palm oil. These are all fats that oxidize when you cook in them. And these are the oils that they use to cook with in restaurants because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, even growing up, when you go to the Persian market or whatever, canola oil is everywhere, right?
You buy by the gallons, you walk out, And
they used to use it as motor oil.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
No, yeah,
That's crazy.
It was used as motor oil. So, it's rancid. So these oils actually increase your inflammatory markers, and they are the number one cause right now of our top three comorbidities. I can't even say that word. Heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. Yeah, sure. And when you go to other countries, like you go to Europe or you go to Japan or you go outside of the United States, those things are banned.
They don't even ingest them. Yeah.
They don't even ingest. They're not allowed in restaurants.
Isn't it interesting? You've heard people say, people that have this is a different topic, but like a gluten sensitivity, and they have it here and they go overseas and they're like, I had pizza in Rome and I felt perfectly fine.
Totally fine. And they don't get any of the digestive issues. They drink all the wine, they eat all the bread and the pasta. Great. And they lose weight. Because
they're walking everywhere.
Well, I was going to say they're walking everywhere. They're not getting the bad fats in the food when they eat out. And then on top of that, the wine and the food doesn't have any of the preservatives or the chemicals that we allow here. There's over 500 different chemicals and preservatives the United States allows that other countries have banned. It's unfortunate. Hopefully, with the whole MAHA movement, it'll get better.
But until then, I mean, it's like, again, like we talked about the very first episode, even if there's one takeaway that our listeners will take away, because it's hard to do everything.
It is.
Even if you take one thing and say, you know what, I don't read labels. I'm going to start reading labels and educate myself, because you can get a little overconsumed with reading labels and now you're getting a little manic about it. But even if you just take one thing and go, I'm going to add an anti-inflammatory spice or herb or whatever into my diet.
Yeah. And that's the thing is you can't really do everything because it's impossible. But I would say that if there's one thing you can change that's going to be better for your health overall, it's change the amount of times you eat out during the week. Because at least if you cook with the good stuff at home, you're controlling that environment, right? If you can just minimize how much you eat out, because I know there's kids, I hear about kids eating out every single day because their parents don't cook.
They don't have time to cook.
They go to even Circle K to get food. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So even if we just stop eating out and we just restrict it to once a week or just minimize it, then at least we know we're minimizing those bad chemicals, the bad fats, the hidden sugars, all of the main things that contribute to the inflammation.
Yeah. Well, inflammation is a massive topic. I know we're only going to talk about it for a few minutes here today, but back to the really quick, back to the acute inflammation, just from clinical experience. If you have acute inflammation of any sort, you should have it looked at to make sure you don't have anything more severe, right? You want to make sure that sprained ankle isn't a torn ligament or a torn Achilles or whatever, it might be. But understanding how severe it is really will determine what's the proper course of care to properly manage the inflammation or the injury and whatnot.
Yeah, because
those are the easy ones, right? It's the chronic inflammation conditions that become more difficult because now you've got a bigger ball of knots to kind of untangle and kind of take apart and things like that. And people just ignore things. I just learned to live with it. Well, now it's not that it's late, but it's much more difficult to treat.
And you want to make sure that you try to minimize the amount of chronic inflammation that is contributed into your lifestyle, because the more you minimize that, the better your overall health span is going to be, right? So you're going to not only live long, but you're going to live a healthier life, a longer, healthier life.
Yeah, the other day we were talking, and I know I came in the office and we were talking about health span and lifespan. And I think that's a pretty awesome concept. And I was just visualizing in my head, if each of those was its own barometer and you had the needles kind of moving,
Right.
your lifespan is how you're going to live. Like you're going to live to 75. That's where your needle moves to, The problem is a lot of people start to inherit or bring in unhealthy lifestyle habits where their health span starts to go the opposite way. And the ideal situation for them to be right on top of one another, type of thing. So,
it's really important. We talk about lifestyle and the term epigenetics gets thrown around. And that's basically, epigenetics is just the lifestyle you have that contributes to your DNA. Right. So what you do in your life now, in your lifestyle, contributes to your DNA. So it's not necessarily always about genetics. If it was about genetics, well then, you and I, we don't have long to live, right?
Yep.
So we can change our epigenetics and increase our lifespan because, we know more, we have healthier lifestyles. And
there's more resources. There's more resources. And you're right. I think people will go, oh yeah, my mom and dad had heart disease. So, it is what it is, but that's not the case. You can rewrite history a little bit and change that through knowledge and implementation of one or two things at a time before it becomes the normal thing for you. You know, so.
And it's all inflammation.
Yeah.
That's the core of it. That's the foundation of cellular health is inflammation. So
how do you control that?
So again, any takeaways from this episode, it's making sure you've got the hidden sugars taken away out of mitigated as much as you can from your diet. You've got less bad fats, right? Less soybean oil,
Trans
palm oil,
fats
canola oil. And then you want to make sure that you're trying to eliminate as many toxins in your food that you can, like the chemicals, the preservatives.
Yeah.
All that stuff. So
cause all that inflammation.
So it's a quick inflammation episode, but
it's quick, but there's a lot you can talk about.
And we'll be doing more on inflammation too, because it's such a big topic. But
if you have any questions on inflammation, if there's things that you feel that help you to manage your inflammation, chronic inflammation. We could talk about acute inflammation, but I think most people understand how to manage that. But please just comment below. We'll be happy to answer any questions you have and share any information that you have with other people as well.
And you can also direct message us too through Instagram.
Definitely. So awesome. Thanks for tuning in. Until the next episode, we're going to continue down our list of the five, why do I keep saying that every time I do that? The 5 non-negotiables. And we've got, we've got
3 more to go.
3 more to go. What are they that we have coming up?
So we just did.
We have hydration coming up.
Yeah, but what did we just do? We did sleep and movement.
Yeah, sleep, movement.
Then we're going to do hydration,
probiotics,
protein, and probiotics.
Yeah, so those 3 are huge. I'm sure everybody that's listening does some level of that, but we're going to kind of give you some of the things that we do, some of the things that's out there to help improve your lifespan. So. All right, awesome. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
And health span.
And health span, that's right. That's what I meant to say, health span, not lifespan.
Yeah.
So. All right, cool.
Thanks, guys.
Talk to you next time. The information provided in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. While we may be licensed healthcare professionals, this content should not be used to diagnose or treat any medical condition or to replace the advice of your personal healthcare provider.
Always consult your doctor or a qualified health professional with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Listening to this podcast does not create a doctor-patient relationship. Reliance on any information provided is solely at your own risk.